And
Hello and welcome to Sales Leaders Institute. I'm Shelley Carney.
my name is Toby Younis, the gentleman over to my left, but you're right. We're going to introduce him in just a minute, and we're going to talk to him about his experiences during this very funny period in our history. We'll come back to that. Before we get started, got to take care of this business. Remember, like this video. We like it when you like our videos. YouTube likes it when you like our videos. Share it with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your business associates, the entirety of your social network so that we can grow the channel. And finally, if you are not already a subscriber, this would be the ideal time to subscribe. And when you see that notifications bell, click on that notifications bell. And that way, whenever we start a live stream, you'll be immediately informed and in the know. And there's nothing more, especially right now, than being in the know. This is our good friend, Joel Lewicki. Joel is an attorney, and I'm not going to say the name of the firm because I would probably mess it up badly. So I'm going to let Joel do that. Joel is here not because he is in sales, but because he's having a lot of the same experiences those of us that are in the field of sales are having. He's got to look at his business in a completely different way. And this conversation was the result of a conversation that I had with him this morning on a completely different topic. But it struck me, everybody is going through this, not just salespeople. So Joel, welcome. And let's start by you saying the name of your company so I don't mess it up.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Toby. And hi, Shelley. And hello to all of you. My name is Joel Lewicki. I work for Colosimo, Patchin, and Kearney, which is a small to medium-sized law firm in northern Minnesota. We have 4 attorneys. I have 5 support staff that work for me. We're a full-service law firm, so we do everything from dog bites to family law to what I really specialize in, which is transactional law. So business law, real estate, business planning, estates, both on the estate planning side as well as on the probate side after somebody has passed away. So I do a whole gamut of things. And you're not exactly right, because I am involved in sales to the extent that I'm selling my services all the time. And the services of my firm. So, and that's something that we do on large scale and small scale. We're pretty old fashioned in that we don't advertise a whole lot. Most of our advertising is by word of mouth from people that are interacting with each other. So there's not a whole lot of that going on right now. So our advertising, at least for the sales that I do, which is providing people quality legal services, has been pretty different.
And I'm glad that you recognize that point, that no matter what we are in, whatever business we're in, we're always kind of selling. We have to sell the business, we have to sell ourselves, we have to sell what we do to other people, and that requires engagement. And I notice I can't tell whether you're in your law office or your home office, and you just have the luxury of an entire collection of the federal law thing. Are you home or at your office right now?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of federal law here. I do have some federal law. That's these ones here. Those are the Northwest Reporter Seconds. Those are cases. Behind me are the Minnesota statutes annotated and some other local Minnesota law books, law practice, different things, and the things that I specifically focus on. But I'm in my work office.
Oh, okay, all right. And
my wife wouldn't let me do this at home.
Yeah, I don't blame her. It's hard. I think we're going to be talking a little bit about that in just a minute. So, what kind of law specifically do you practice, and what does that mean in terms of interaction with clients?
Yeah, great question. So most of my stuff is one-on-one with clients who are seeing me for either some sort of document preparation, like retitling their house or conveying property, either through a sale or through a gift or through some sort of protection device to keep it from going into probate, or to transfer it to their kids so that they can qualify for medical assistance if they have to go in the nursing home later on in life, that kind of thing. I also do estate planning. So I do wills, trusts, estate work, advanced healthcare directives, power of attorneys, all of that sort of stuff that goes into that. What happens if I die, and can I plan for that? And what happens if I don't die, and can I plan for that to make it easier? I do documents of convenience for people so that stuff is taken care of in case something happens to them, whether that results in their promotion upstairs or not. I don't know if that.
No. That's
I try to stay out of the courtroom. Is what I'm saying.
Well, but I that's the question I wanted to ask.
Yep.
I'm familiar with corporate law. I'm familiar with criminal law, but I wouldn't know what area the practice you described, and what do they call it?
Transactional.
Transactional
attorneys. Yep. So that's mainly what I do.
Okay.
Which means that I have a pretty large number of open files at any given time, probably more than I should have, according to my paralegal. But for the number of things that are going on, I see somebody, and I have very reasonable rates. I don't charge very much for an attorney. And so I see a lot of people. It's almost like a volume business in that sense, that I do a lot of estate planning for people. But that involves multiple face-to-face meetings with them. So I send them an intake form for estate planning, for instance. Let's say they need a will and a power of attorney, healthcare directive, and they want to retitle their property so that they can avoid probate. I can do all of that for them for less than $1,000. But that involves me meeting with them in person right here in my office, usually at least twice, maybe 3 times, depending on what's going on and how much review work we need to do in actually executing and signing all of those documents. But right now, so I'm in Minnesota, and our governor has issued a stay-at-home order. And so most people are, I don't want to say sheltering in place, but they're kind of sheltering in place. You're only supposed to go out for essential things. And a lot of people in my state don't realize that one of the essential things is exactly the things I just described. The government still wants people to be able to plan for those things financially, both with healthcare directives, powers of attorney, if they're unable to act on their own, a will that's in place. Those are all things. So my business is still essential. We're still conducting business. We're doing it within the federal government guidelines, trying to maintain distance and sanitizing stuff and all of that still. But we are still operating right now.
I'm going to follow on, but I wanted to give Shelley a chance to get in here.
Oh, well. So how are you doing mentally? I know you're a dad. You've got kids at home, the wife. How are you doing mentally handling all of the change that's going on right now?
Well, I'm glad you asked me right now, because right now I'm doing well. If you'd asked me yesterday, I was in a funk. I've met with maybe 2 or 3 clients this week, which that's next to nothing for my business. I'm an extrovert by nature. I like interacting with people, and I can't do that right now. My secretary, so I should back up and say in Minnesota, even though we've got this stay-at-home order and we're considered essential, even if you're essential, we've been advised to work from home if possible.
Right.
So what I've been doing, my secretary is actually, I have a remote office in a city about 20 minutes east of here that I staff part of the week. It makes it easier for clients to meet there rather than in my main office. So we have a satellite office there. And she's been working there for this whole last week that we've had this stay-at-home order in place. That means the person that I work most closely with day in and day out isn't here. And that just creates this strange vacuum in your interpersonal life. It's hard. It throws off all of your rhythms at work, right? I've got this rhythm. I come in, I check my emails and my voicemails, and I grab a cup of coffee, and then she comes in and we go over this, and she's not here to come in and go over that stuff. And that's hard. And that throws off that. But I think personally, I've got a very strong support network with my wife and with my kids and with my faith community here where I live. And all of those things, I think, have helped quite a bit. Nothing helps quite as much as a little bit of dark chocolate and a good night's rest.
Champion of dark chocolate right there. So let me go back to the question, simply because you mentioned that you were practicing social distancing, that you're still physically meeting with clients. The law has always struck me as the times that I've experienced it, where I've had wills done, things like that. It always struck me as important that I meet face to face with a lawyer, with my attorney. What are the chances that they'll ever get to the point where you can Zoom a client? And is that rational? Is it legal? And do most of your clients have the ability to do that, or they, like me, they want to see their attorney face to face?
Yeah, sure. Of course that's legal. Yeah, for sure you can do that. And oftentimes I'll have intakes, I have some clients that I've only ever talked to on the phone that are out of state, and I'm representing them for legal services here in the state of Minnesota. And so that occurs sometimes. But it really comes down to trust, right? And that's kind of where I would tie it in with sales, is that as an attorney, I want to be able to meet with somebody face to face, because they're deciding whether they want to hire me. Right. And that's so much more easily accomplished in person. It's really hard to establish trust with someone you don't know if you're not here to see the pictures of my wife and kids on my desk and the artwork that they make for me, right? I can't point at it here, right? And just those personal connections you make with somebody, if you don't have that, that's pretty hard.
Shelley?
So you say that your client load has been shifting because people aren't aware that these are still essential services. And I'm sure they're extremely distracted right now with so many things going on. They're not even focused on that. So what do you think you'll be doing to make people aware? These services are very necessary, especially in times like these, and that you are there ready to serve them.
Yeah, so thankfully I have a very broad scope of practice and a number of things that are going right now. So I'm not at a place right now where I'm twiddling my thumbs. I have a lot of projects that I'm trying to get cleared off of my desk and out of my filing cabinets, and just to get them wrapped up and finalized, and going back through and corresponding with people that I haven't heard from in too long. And so that's where I'm at right now. In terms of like the forward thinking aspect, as a small business, one of the things that we've been looking at right now for keeping the doors open and the lights on is payroll. And that is, I mentioned the other attorneys that I've got, all of the support staff that it takes to do this. I mean, you're only as good as your support staff, and I've got the best support staff, and I want to be able to keep them on and not reduce their hours, not reduce their wages, not furlough them or lay them off and have them collecting unemployment. That doesn't do any of us any good. And thankfully, the Small Business Association and the small business loan program that's being released is going to help people like me, and I think probably a lot of your viewers who are in sales, who are going to be able to qualify for that as well. And that's going to be pretty crucial in the next, right now, it's slow, but that means that my accounts receivable is going to be what's shrinking. And so I'm looking a few months down the road. That's when it's going to be harder cash flow wise in making payroll and doing those things and having to tighten up the bootstraps a little bit. That's one of the things that's different. The other thing is, I'm not seeing clients. I'm wearing like a casual shirt as an attorney. This is weird for me. It's just, I've worn jeans like 3 times this week.
Yeah.
The world is totally upside down right now.
At least you're wearing pants.
Right.
Yeah.
So, one of the lessons that we're learning, or one of the pieces of intelligence that we have as a result of this, was that it seems to us that perhaps the government wasn't quite prepared for this. I'm not criticizing them. They're doing as much as they can to correct the problem. But what struck me was that none of us were prepared for this. You don't promote this. There's no way to say, guess what? Someday you're going to have a pandemic. And we as Americans, as Europeans and probably the Asian community, didn't expect it either, didn't plan on it, didn't even think about it. What as individuals rather than as businesses, as individuals, what can we take away from this in terms of preparing ourselves for whatever future that we're going to experience?
Boy, if I could sum it up, I think it would be, I don't know if this would make sense, but faithfulness in the small things. It's so easy to just kind of skate through and cut corners or say things that people want to hear, rather than actually doing what needs to be done. And I think that's really important for all of us as a society all around, right? Like, what if the grocer wasn't doing their part right now, if they weren't being faithful in the little things and coming in and placing orders and keeping that supply chain open? What about the medical staff right now? If they weren't, doing what they need to be doing? I think it's easy for us to take the mentality that someone else is responsible for this. And I think all of us we are all in this together.
Right.
And you guys are a couple time zones away or whatever. You're many states away from me. And yet we're connected in that sense, that we're all part of the same family, really. I think we're all much more connected than we realize. And not just within our own country, but that's kind of the microcosm that we're used to thinking of is our country.
As a nation.
And for us to get through this, that's going to be really important. I don't know if you saw, but there's a recent posting by one of the deputy managers of Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae or one of those, or I think they're combined now, but he posted a graphic of the unemployment claims, and it's a moving bar graph that goes back to the 60s. Have you seen this?
I have.
And it is sobering to see where we're at right now. And I think that there's the possibility that there are some really tough times coming ahead, and all of us needs to be doing our part.
And sometimes doing your part is just keeping people informed, letting them know what their options are, et cetera, et cetera. Shelley?
Yeah.
So we're heading into some tough times, you're saying. And what can you offer as a way of hope, of doing the things, now, getting our ducks in a row so that in the future we don't come up against some problems? What can we do to anticipate where we're headed and to make our futures better? Yep.
So one, I think that tough times does a couple of things, right? I grew up I grew up pretty disadvantaged, pretty poor, really, and had some tough times. Ate a lot of government cheese, right, as a kid, government peanut butter, and coming out of that background, I think those hard times reveal things in our character. They reveal things in our makeup, but they also form things in our character. Those are times where we have the option to grow in how we respond to adversity. And I think as Americans, we have a wonderful tradition of that. Going back to, I'm a big fan of the Civil War. I'm a big fan of history, World War II, and even the things that we learned, I think, hopefully, as a society from the Vietnam War, Toby, of which you have far more experience than I do, from my love of history, your experience of that, the Depression, the Cold War. There's a lot of things that we can look at where, as a society and as individuals, we had to step up, and we had to. We've been in a pretty easy, pretty happy-go-lucky, pretty bull market for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I think it would just be great if more and more people were stepping up with those revelations of their character, of love and care for our fellow man and woman.
Well, it's interesting that you mention that, because my mother was the disadvantaged generation, right? And they came out of that. They gave me what I needed to go to college, make a career for myself, and I gave that to my children. And we just had a conversation with one of my daughters about, she's in sales, high-tech sales, and I actually wondered, they were so accustomed to having led a protected life. I want to say comfortable, but it was protected. Nothing bad. But on the other hand, they've had to deal with 9/11. They've had to deal with the recession of the late 2000s, and now they have to deal with this. And I wondered, are they going to be able, I'm not there, right? They're on their own. They're in their 30s now, 30s and 40s. And I wondered to myself, will they be able to make it? In the conversations that I've had with them, I don't want to say I'm surprised. I'm excited to find out that they're handling this okay. They're working from home. They're handling the fact in two of my daughter's cases that the children are not going to daycare, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing. I said this to Shelley the other day that this is the point at which America finds out if it's really as resilient as it thinks it is, or it believes itself to be. So, Shelley, another question. I had one last one, and then I want to go over to what we talked about this morning.
All right. So, how's it working out at home with kids being home and you having to go to work? And what is your wife doing? And how's all that working at home?
So we're a little easier off in that regard. We homeschool, and so I have four kids, 10, 9, 5, and 3. And but the big change is that my wife actually is a small business owner and runs a homeschool support network and classical conversation community. And so they learn things like Latin and history and different stuff, art, science, geography, all those classical things that I didn't have the opportunity to realize that I didn't know when I was growing up, and some of it that I still don't know. And so their community has had to completely change how they interact. So they're doing stuff online, and they're doing things remotely and by telephone calls, and they do Zoom conferences like this. So the kids, they do some challenge math games. And so my son was on with a few of his classmates doing these challenge math games on Zoom online, which is a wonderful, when I was a kid, that was science fiction. That was not, nothing like that was even close to being a reality. So that's pretty incredible.
I remember giving a speech at the Historically Black Colleges and Universities Association meeting one year in the mid-'90s and predicting this is how you're going to have to do it,
Yeah.
So I do want to spend, Shelley, before I move on, did you have any other questions?
Nothing I can think of right now.
All right. So the reason I wanted to bring Joel on today is because he called me this morning, and he called because he was trying to solve a communications problem, and we do a lot of this. We have a lot of experience in the various tools and techniques, but and we worked it out. Combination of Zoom, OBS, and something called Restream.io, which you may or may not know about. What intrigued me was that this was, we know that Joel is a man of faith and has a very strong faith community around him because he's talked about it more than once. But what was interesting to me is that what he was trying to work out is how to project that community on Sunday morning out into the ionosphere, wherever it goes. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I really thought it was an interesting approach.
Yeah. So one of my big concerns right now is for the mental health of our communities, and the community that I'm a part of right now, especially with isolation and with lack of interaction with other people. The longer we go in this, I think the harder it's going to be for people that do struggle with depression and with different things that makes it really difficult to be alone. And in Minnesota, we're coming out of about a 13-month period of winter. So, it's hard anyways. And this is the time of year when everyone's excited. We can actually leave our houses again for the first time. And now we can't. And so we have a lot of people that are struggling with that, and a lot of people that are trying to. So what we're trying to do is to create connections for people to fill in those gaps where we can't do that anymore. And one of those things that brings some comfort and sense of familiarity is we can't gather on Sunday morning. We're basically prohibited from our state from doing that right now because of, and we want to love our community by we actually canceled before the state told us we had to, because we wanted to flatten the curve. We said, no, we're going to do this so that we can love our community and and love our medical workers in our community and all of that. And so we're coming up on our 4th week of not meeting together. And so we're doing a sermon from our church, and we're live streaming it on Facebook. And I think we had like 2,500 interactions on that thing so far. Our church is like 200 people. So that's pretty impressive that many people were involved in that.
An indication of the need.
And interacted with it. And, but of the people, like one of the things that was really great is as we were doing that, people were able to comment and interact, and we got to see and hear from like 80 different people that were logged in from our church. And that's wonderful to be able to do that and to have those interactions. That's pretty great.
And so this week you're planning not only to go back to Facebook, but to a YouTube channel, which should attract even more.
Yeah, we're trying that. So after I got some of the bugs worked out, I realized that our internet is pretty weak from where we're trying to broadcast from. So I was having some latency issues with that. So we'll see what happens. Well, one of the reasons I'm doing this from my office is because my internet is stronger here.
One of the things I was going to let you know that if you're experiencing some of those issues, just give me a feel free to call me and we can work through. One of the options that OBS has is to reduce the throughput so you're not choking your internet. And since it's going through Restream, you're sending it a signal, Restream is sending the same signal, so your choke point is usually from where your computer is connected to. Restream doesn't have the problem. So let me know and I can help you work on some of those if you're not familiar with OBS. All right. Last questions, Shell, before we wrap up?
No, I was just going to remark that I was just with my women's group online. We were in Zoom together and we did breakout sessions, which was very cool because if we're in a group meeting, usually we don't get to talk one-on-one quietly with each other, but because we had these breakout rooms, we were like just sent into these different rooms to talk with people who maybe we hadn't gotten a chance to talk with before. And then they would give us talking points to interact on and ask each other these questions. So it was so much more than what it would have been if we'd been in person. So I think with your church and faith community, these are some things that I think you'll be able to use as well. Maybe not during the sermon part, but maybe during the Sunday school or the Wednesday night meetings or whatever it is that you have. These additional features that are offered online where you can put people into the different groups and they can have conversations about the topics that you're teaching on. It's just amazing. So really, this is a time of hope. It's a time of stretching ourselves and embracing the technology. And are there people that you have been connecting with more than you were before this happened?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. So we have a number. We call them life groups, right? So like a Bible study. We have small groups that meet that we call life groups, and we have a Friday night group that meets. And they got together Friday night and they played some games together. They played like an online game together. And that kind of thing, like that does so much for raising your spirits right now when you can't get out and do stuff like that. You know, all the restaurants, coffee shops, meeting places, bars, everything is closed down. And so people are just, I think, hungry for that interaction. And I have some friends from another stage in life about 10 years ago that we have now had a couple of Skype dates with our spouses, like all of us on, just interacting together for, we call it like a happy hour with the friends. And we all pour a little drink and talk, and it's great to have that. And so, and that's something we've had the ability to do that for years.
Right.
We've never had the occasion or the reason to do it. And so now you're exactly right. It is opening up more layers or more avenues for connecting with some of those people. My concern is still for some of those people that don't have the access for this in my community. So we have a way that they can call in and they can just listen on their phone. Right. So if they don't have a computer, they don't have internet access, they don't have, whatever it is. So we're trying to get creative to include as many of those people as we can.
Good. Right. And like Shelley says, we're all experiencing it in different ways and connecting with people. Not that we haven't connected. I called my children regularly, but now 4:00 every Sunday, I launch a Zoom thing, and whoever shows up, shows up. You know? Yeah,
it's pretty surprising how much more I think that's happening all around.
It is. All right, Joel, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I know for those of you that view our channel, you may not think of this as sales leaders, but the simple fact of the matter is Joel is right. We're always selling in our business, and we're all experiencing a lot of the same things right now. So, again, Joel, thanks very much. Good luck with your event on Sunday, and let me offer again, if there's anything that I can do to help make it better, just give me a call, and we'll work through it, okay? All right, Shelley, thanks for joining me, and I'd forgotten it was First Friday here you wouldn't normally be here. You'd be with your networking group, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but we did it online before this show, so I'm good.
All right. Well, for those of you viewing this, thanks very much. I did want to say hi to Jeep Girl Jody in the room, and make sure you noticed the ideas that she had about this, because she works from home, and she's also a big fan of dark chocolate. Swami, I just wanted to say hello to you as well. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you found this entertaining, informative, and educational. We're going to keep doing these as long as we're experiencing this kind of period in our time, and we've got a lot of great folks to talk to in the future. Thanks for joining us today.